Y'all's the hate on all of my moves, but now niggas on it. Y'all used to bait me on me and my views, but now niggas on it. I used to tell them I'ma have me a show, but now niggas on it. Her homies on it. Your homies on it. Y'all's the hate on all of my moves, but now niggas on it. Y'all used to debate me on me and my views, but now niggas on it. I used to tell them I had me a show, but now niggas on it. Her homies on it. Your homies on it. Realest podcast.
TRP Nation was good. We're on location today at Billy Penn Studios, bringing you one of emergency pod. As there's some important and interesting things happening in the city of Philadelphia right now when it comes to business, industry, and taxes. None greater than the possible expiration of the BERT tax abatement, which spells big trouble for all of my business owners and independent contractors. Joining me to navigate through this complex issue, we have Preston Thomas, who serves as Director of Special Projects for the City of Philadelphia for Councilman Isaiah Thomas' office. He has an extensive background in event planning and execution, customer service, and program direction. And last but not least, we also had Will Bowie, who is a literal superstar in the world of construction engineer and all things utilities. Will started his career in the utility construction industry by joining an apprentice program through the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. He worked his way up through the ranks of the journeyman lineman, holding various positions at different utility-based construction companies, managing over $2 billion in projects before he even started his own company, Empower Construction, which is currently servicing the greater Philadelphia area, also into Jersey, Delaware, I believe, as well, doing a lot of commercial grade, large scale projects. First and foremost, thank both of y'all for, being able to join me today. We had some scheduled stuff we had to work around, but got both of y'all here at the same time. And hopefully I did y'all justice on the intros.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Sounds good to me. I not as accomplished as this brother right here, but certainly feels good to be sitting next to him.
Yeah, same. It was great to connect with both of y'all, within the last week and just, doing my research, learning about y'all, seeing all of the, different people that we are, we had in common and know and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be smooth, easy conversation. It's not like, super duper Q&A. Just trying to inform the people. We represent an audience that's, pretty diverse. Our primary base is like 25 to like 45, Black working professionals. We got some other ethnicities in there too, but, a lot of people in and around the mid-Atlantic. So I think like, information like this, these, topical type shows are always good to be able to get out to the people just to be able to inform the ones that want to know and then also inform the ones that have no idea what's going on. So I think we're going to put a lot of people onto that. Starting off, I just want to give y'all both an opportunity to, introduce yourselves, give any additional information or whatever, as it pertains to, y'all, anything you're working on, stuff like that. And then we're going to jump right into the conversation.
Preston, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess as you said, currently Director of Special Projects for Councilman Isaiah Thomas for the City of Philadelphia. Done a lot of event planning. I've actually went out west in the Bay Area, worked at some tech companies. So I've been able to, kind of see different landscapes, as well as coaching youth sports, specifically youth basketball, currently at Sankofa Freedom Academy in the Kensington area. Shout out to my youngins. We did just go to a state chip. Unfortunately came up short, but the next batch, we getting ready, locked and loaded for another run. So, that's a little bit about me. Very, very versatile, I guess, in the professional space. One of the reasons why I had the pleasure to be able to be a special projects director for Councilman Thomas, working on an assortment of things. Just was at a youth mural arts event where was some very important people there. I don't know if I can speak to that, but folks will definitely see some of the great things that's going on in the city from the mural arts community, as well as really, really working to empower the youth and make the city a better place for the young people.
Yeah. Good job with that, Preston. So Preston and Councilman Thomas, thank you guys for everything you guys do. You guys are really the ones fighting for us in the city of Philadelphia. A lot of people don't know the things that you guys do and what you fight for, but for me, thank you to you and the team. For me, William Bowie, born and raised in the city of Philadelphia, primarily the Germantown section, educated in the public school system. I graduated from E&S.
E&S?
Yeah, E&S. And, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. So I chose to go to Drexel. And somebody should have told me, why are you choosing the most expensive school in the whole entire city? Because it only lasted a year before I had to stop because of finances. and I joined an apprenticeship and to learn how to be electrical lineman. I traveled the country. Everything I do, I try to be the master at it, and I try to be the best at it. So when I got into that industry, and it was about 0.0001% African American, I looked at that as an opportunity. That's right. Where there's a problem, there's opportunity. So I look at that as opportunity. How do I break into that industry?
Yeah.
Fast forward 20 plus years later, we own our own company where we're the largest African-American owned utility construction company in the entire Northeast United States, right? So, we're trying to break down barriers. The beautiful thing about that is not only do we perform that in construction space, we're also heavy into the youth and into the trades, right? How do we get more of our city of Philadelphia students and high schools, those who college isn't really for? How do we introduce them to the trades where they're starting off with 6 figures, no debt, right? So, and it's a career. So I'm really passionate about that. And just like Preston, I'm not a coach, but I'm a basketball junkie. I play basketball. I'm heavy. I support a lot of the programs around the city. And it's how we engage our youth to be active.
Yeah. Finals picks.
Finals picks, I gotta go with the Young Thunder, man. The Young Thundercats, I think they got a lot going on. The Pacers, they're gonna make it a fast game, but the Thunder, the one team in the league that can play defense and play fast.
Right. I got to go with the Thunder, too. Although Pacers is the only NBA team I've seen pick up at 90 feet on the court, right? I just don't think they're going to be outlasting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was watching some on ESPN the other day, and Brian Windhorst said the Thunder's defense is like the Kraken.
Yeah.
He said they're large, intimidating, and they have a lot of tentacles, and they don't stop coming at you.
Yep. I think they both teams super deep. I think Miles Turner even alluded to, if any Sixers fans is watching, the day of the super team might be a day of the past, building a deep team with a lot of young people, a lot of youth, a lot of athleticism, a lot of length to complement each other seems like the better way to build a team in today's NBA.
Yeah. Before we get into, everything around like the business landscape, affiliate tax stuff and all that, something interesting that I peeped on your resume. I know you worked at Hengels and McCoy for like 15 years. I'm familiar with them because one of their subsidiaries, Madiola Construction, I used to work with when I was doing business to business sales, enterprise fleet. They were one of my fleet customers. And Hengels is one of these companies that just is very omnipresent, and you just see their trucks on the road all the time. Anywhere you go in the state of Pennsylvania, you constantly see them. I guess what I wanted to ask you is talk about the process of literally starting off as a tradesman and then all of the information that you gain over the years to be in a position in 2020 to be able to start, your own company.
Yeah, if you look at most owners of businesses, they weren't in their business, right? They never actually performed their business. Yes, there's very few. So I think that's what kind of gives me the leg up starting from the very bottom. You take a company like Hinkles & McCoy, a 100-year-old company that actually started in Germantown, right, in one of the largest companies in the world. They had over 8,000 employees, did about $3 to $5 billion in revenue a year. I started from an apprentice and worked my way all the way up to an area manager where I ran about $300 million on book with business phone.
Yeah.
When you get to be businesses that large, it's kind of tough because you could get lost, right? And especially as a field worker, they're like, they don't think you could do an office job. They don't think you can manage revenue. Right.
They got to pigeonhole
you to you're a craftsman, you're a worker, right? Yeah. Not knowing that some of us are actually brilliant, creative, and we want to go further. So I made it a point to show everybody in the organization that I wanted more, right? I mastered something and it's like, what's next, right? So I'll give you a little quick story. I give this to a lot of young people. What really put me on the map was an inner city school came out to the office building. And it was about middle school kids and they wanted to learn about being in construction.
Yeah.
And we had this other guy, he was a white guy, he was up and he was giving a speech and I was supposed to pair with him and tell him about being a lineman. Well, the other guy, young guy, gets up, he's stuttering, he doesn't know how to speak to the team, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking and I'm like, oh, I got to say this. So I jump right in, right? And I start talking to them and speaking into their language of what they could relate to, right? And I'm just going on and I got blinders on. Next thing you know, I look up in the back of the room and every executive for the whole entire company was standing at the back of the room. And then because I was able to speak fluently and able to speak, they're like, you're pretty good. And that's what kind of really put me on the map because they saw me in action. Right. And I grew a relationship actually with the owner of Hengels & McCoy. Okay, well, no, he lives in Philadelphia.
Right.
Right. Rod Hinkles is an incredible individual, right? He gives back so much to the community. You look at the school, Crystal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's predominantly funded by Rod Hinkles and his family.
Wow.
Right. A lot of people don't know that. That's how these people,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, he was a great mentor to me and was able to get me to where I've been today.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah, because like a lot of times, like you said, you get, you know, when you're in certain jobs, there's all of these internal and external pressure. You get pigeonholed by, you know, the people that you work for, or whatever the case may be. Then there's like a mindset shift in people, generally speaking, right now, where they got to start off as the boss, or start off as the CEO, not understanding it's like, yo, you glean all of this knowledge from every different experience that you have, you put it together, and that's how you become the, you know, an entrepreneur, if that's true.
Correct. Nobody wants to put the work in. You know, the young generation don't want to put the time in. They, you know, they want to just get straight to being a manager. Like even relationships, it's like, hey, look, we married, right? You know, I just gave you my number yesterday, right? Like that's just that it's instant gratification. Yes, yeah, young people.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, so this BERT tax thing, you know, just in talking to you know, Councilman Thomas or whatever, frequently or whatever, he first brought it up when he did a show with us last June. And he first brought it up then, and he's like, hey, this is coming up. Like, you know, this is something that, you know, everybody needs to be aware of. So this is something that he's been talking about. And if it is a complex issue, I don't want to oversimplify it, because sometimes then people just feel like, oh, all right, well, if it's that simple, then it's like, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. But I do want to, you know, try to make the discussion as palatable as possible for the audience, if, you know, for anybody that's checking this out. So Preston, I'm gonna start with you. With you being on the city side, what is the origin of this BERT tax, and how did it evolve to the present structure and where we are now in 2025?
Awesome. So before we get started, you know, I like to identify, define things, right? Because when you hear BERT tax, you know, it has nothing to do with somebody being birthed, and has nothing to do with Sesame Street. So to be more specific, it's the business income and receipts tax. So that basically is the tax that any person or any company has to pay off of any moment that you basically make money. Right. Anytime you turn a profit, that's what the BERT tax is. So as it currently stands in the city of Philadelphia, there's $100,000 exemption. So that basically means up until $100,000, you're exempt from paying this tax. Exactly. Well, what we're looking at being voted on is that exemption being removed. Right. So now that means anything
from dollar one.
From dollar one, yes, you looking at paying what we consider a BERT tax. So to make it super simple, right, would be like, let's start off with buying a home. Right? Everybody buys a home. Most people buy a home. When you buy a home, you got your closing fees and everything like that. But when you pay the BERT tax, that's a tax that's only paid from the city that you got to pay. And I think right now it's at 4.2%. Most people buy houses over what? 100,000. So there's most of the time no avoiding that BERT tax on buying a home. The difference is if it goes up to, you know, 4.6%, that's a 4%, you know, about 4% difference that you're paying in taxes right now. So literally buying a $300,000 house, that's like paying maybe 16 in BERT tax right now. Yeah. That might go up to like 19,000, right? So from 16,000 to 19,000.
Yeah, just by that shift.
Just by that little bit of shift. So that's why it's such a big deal, because if we talk about the BERT tax being something that all business owners have to pay, even if you under $100,000, that means I was just at an art and culture event, right? That means all of our local artists that don't make $100,000, they're going to have to pay BERT taxes on the money they make. DJs, you're going to have to pay $100,000 on the money you make. Oh, you cut hair, you're going to have to pay $100,000 on that money you make. Oh, y'all podcast? You're going to have to pay money on all of the money you make. Oh, you got Patreon? Let me see that W-9, right? So, and you're going to have to pay taxes on that, all because of specifically the BERT tax and the exemption of $100,000 being removed for here in the city of Philadelphia.
Right. Wow. So, this is a relatively new tax, from what I'm understanding.
Yep.
Back to like 2018.
2018. Then I want to say in about 2023 is when it started. You know, I guess the city started looking at it and started maybe tweaking it. And now, you know, the new budget we got coming up is looking at, like I said, removing that exemption of $100,000 and ultimately raising the percentages.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. You know, just speaking as a layman, from the outside looking in, like a citizen of Philadelphia, whatever like that, we're already faced with more taxes than anywhere else in the state.
Correct.
As it starts. Most people, you go to King Pressure Mall, you go wherever, 6% tax. You shop in the city is 8%, stuff like that. You have those small differences. Then you still got the soda tax issue, and then
It's very high.
yeah, which is very, very high. And buying something in Montgomery County versus Philadelphia, like a case of soda, can be the difference between. Even though I shouldn't be drinking soda, but could be the difference between being able to buy an extra one or just having that one.
Basic prices on the soda, right? When we was growing up, you couldn't, sodas was no more than $1.50. I feel like regardless to how
You got a day soda at the corner store.
well, that's what I said. That was a quarter. That's what I said. That's what I said. No more than $1.50. We look at soda right now. You're not getting soda less than $1.50. To your point, Days is $1. Days is $1.
Yeah, so at the minimum, Days is up 100%.
Yes, based off the soda tax.
Yeah, so it was like, and then I know, some years ago, I'm not blaming this on the current administration, but some years ago, there was a push there was a city deficit, and they were like, hey, let's charge people to collect their trash. And people were like, yo, what do I pay all these taxes for more than everywhere else in the state? And then you're going to turn around and hit me with a trash tax on top of, everything else. And then that went through, all of the channels and ended up getting shut down. So my question is, why does it feel like the city is so punitive from like a tax standpoint versus everywhere else in the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, I think one of the things that the city has been dealing with since the pandemic is figuring out, how do we, for lack of better terms, make this missed money back, right? How do we get money that was lost back? So in the quest to do that, this is some of the things that us citizens and residents kind of have to, deal with per se. That's why us on the government side, political side, certain things, that's why we ask when we have hearings and we're asking business owners to come up, we're asking you to speak to some of these things that we can visibly see is going to change the nature of everyday life for the everyday Philadelphian. So to the point, the city's trying to make money back that we had lost through the pandemic. And the ways to make that back is through various, tax cuts and or incentives that might not be beneficial for the resident in the here and now coming out of your check, or the here and now when you make a purchase, but in the grand scheme of things, it's supposed to ultimately make the city a better place. We're supposed to get some of those funds back that's being lost, right? The education system, we talk about how much we love the young people. The education system is always at a deficit, right? Our school system needs more money. Some of the ways we can go about getting that money from a city view is via the taxes. Right. Obviously, some of them might be better than others, or some of them might kill the everyday working person more than others, right? Yeah. So for us in our office, we really, really care about the entrepreneur, the person that's in that arts and culture space, right? The podcaster, the DJ, the barber, the makeup artist. All of these people are the folks who we know that thrives off of the city, right? Philly is the home of what? Eds, meds, and beds. Well, we want it to be, our office would like it to be more welcoming to some of these other industries, right? Like the tech industry, like the film industry, like the gaming industry. And one of the first things we did was with the arts and culture space was create the arts task force that allow for us to help creators get some money, get some funding behind some of the things they do. Well, I wouldn't say for not all of that would be, hurt greatly if now folks in that space have to pay these high BERT tax rates because they're losing something simple as the $100,000 exemption. Right. So like just the $100,000 exemption actually saves a lot of people and entrepreneurs from paying the BERT tax.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked that question is because I was, we was talking before we started recording or whatever, just, this building I was telling y'all about was a company that was operating out of this building. That right now, real estate company, large scale, had a lot of employees, whatever. And they basically got to the end of, I believe it was 23, and they had to make the decision, are we going to stay Philly residents or are we going to move? Because there was a delta of $300,000 in tax revenue that they would have had to pay to stay in Philly versus relocate back to their offices in Mount Kenwood, whatever. And they like, yo, we're getting some added marketing presence by being in this building and then also by being in the city from an ease standpoint. Yep. But this is like 2 to 3 executive salary. We can't justify paying this out, in taxes, just for where, we operate out of, not even where we're incorporated out of.
Exactly.
It's where we're operating from.
So basically, you pay in a lot of the taxes based off of where, to your point, where you operate out of, where where your LLC's address is considered to be. That's where you're going to be paying the taxes. And then, everybody should know in Philadelphia, if you just work in Philadelphia, you paying the wage tax.
Yeah.
Right. That's
living.
right. If you work here, right? Like if you do work here, you're already paying that wage tax. So that's one thing. So ultimately, all of these different taxes make it very difficult, if you will, for an entrepreneur to feel like they can grow and be successful here in the city of Philadelphia. It makes you feel like it's difficult for you to, ever garner large amounts of profit because of the amount of money that you're going to have to put back in taxes.
Yeah. One more follow-up question, and then I want to ask Will some things. Being as though you work in San Francisco in the tech sector and stuff like that, to your knowledge, and I know that was private sector, but to your knowledge, is this something that's like unique to Philadelphia when you talk about this like combination of like all of these different, taxes, just for being here versus there, which could literally be a 5-minute drive or a 10-minute walk sometimes.
Yes.
Like, is this like a...
So to my knowledge, it is, right? So to be, to jump in a little bit more personal from my experience, right? The pandemic happens. At the time during the pandemic, I actually was employed in San Francisco. Once, the pandemic happened and a quest to be closer to family and moving to Philadelphia, now I'm working remote. Well, I had to disclose that information to my company. Once I did that, that changed my paycheck. Nothing else changed other than me saying, hey, I'm residing in Philadelphia. You can send, my tax, I'm gonna be filing my taxes at this Philadelphia address for the next year or 2 years, not this, California address. That simple change alone changed the nature of my taxes. To my point about the Philly working tax that you have to pay just for doing work here in the city of Philadelphia. So something as simple as me seeing that on my own, paycheck as an everyday working person, right? I wasn't, a C-level, executive or anything like that. So just as an everyday working person, I seen the difference in just to your point, the Philadelphia tax or the taxes that we have to pay as Philadelphians.
Wow. Will, for business like, such as yours, and I know you come in contact with a bunch of different business owners and stuff like that because you sit on the, the board of a lot of different companies and foundations, also. What type of challenges does, the BERT tax in general present for you and then some of the companies that you work?
Yeah. So, if you look at a small business, right, to understand that BERT tax, we kind of look at it as a double tax, right? Because you get taxed on the gross receipts that your business bank bring in, right? That's before you even make a profit. So you have them give taxes away before you even know if you're going to make a profit or not. So you get in a negative and not make any profit, but still have to pay taxes on your gross receipts.
Right.
Then on your net income, that means your profit that you make, you got to get taxed again through the BERT tax. Or if you do even make a profit, that's why they kind of view it as a double tax in the situation. And we're not even talking about federal and state.
Right. This is just a city.
Just as a city, right? Right. So if you look at the average entrepreneur who's trying to make things happen, they're doing things on their own. They don't have a large accounting firm. They don't have a lawyer. They don't have these people to be able to do this work for them. Right. So now they have to file this stuff on their own and they have to deal with this on their own where they can't accrue for that type of stuff that's coming.
Exactly.
Now they get into the end of the year. They got to think they got a successful year and now they got to give that money away. Sometimes that's the difference between somebody staying in business or going out of business.
Literally.
Especially as a startup entrepreneur. Yeah, I definitely can tell you that. Like when I started, I did not understand the tax system. And the funny thing about construction is wherever you work in construction, if I have a job site in Chester, PA, in a specific township, I have to pay taxes to that township. Mm-hmm. So we're paying thousands and thousands of taxes each year for each township. Right. So we got employees who don't want to come to Philly to work, right? Because of the taxes that's going to get hit for them. Yeah. And then we may even look at a job that we may get hit with the tax. Some may say it's not worth our time to do so. Right. So, when you look at it from a tax perspective, it is a very, very crucial thing for, hey, whether I'm going to be in business, stay in business, whether I'm going to continue to do business.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's very interesting to know. And it's like, just I have friends that own businesses and stuff like that. One being like a home healthcare industry. And he said that a big thing in that industry is like because people don't really have a huge lump sum of money when they're starting off, are like factoring companies where they'll come in and they'll float you your payroll or float you your operation money, and it may be for 2 months, 4 months, however long you need as a bridge to get where you're going. But then you end up paying so much on it, you just kind of like, isn't even worth it to stay in business. So it's like you kind of get dinged like coming and going sometimes, just trying to operate. And then the more you scale, obviously the more you pay in every single form of tax.
Yeah, and it's 40% of the businesses in the United States are small business, right? So how can a small business thrive and grow? That's also ultimately the lifeblood, right? Yeah, I had a mentor who used to say cash flow is blood flow, right? Or you don't have that cash flow to get business, that ain't pumping. Exactly. So you look at everybody who wants to start a business and they're getting hit with all these taxes. How can they invest back into their company to be able to grow their company?
Yes.
They ultimately become stagnant.
Yeah.
Right. Where they can't grow anymore because they just can't afford to.
Right.
Right. So that's one of the things. And we're not even talking about access to capital and things like that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother
Pay the
show.
tax. Exactly. Right. So, it's tough for somebody and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Right. And this stuff isn't written in a book. There's no playbook to how all this happened. Yeah. Normally the entrepreneur finds all these things when they're getting that bill. Is that right? That they didn't even prepare for. So that's the tough part about being a young entrepreneur.
I want to ask you a question. In your experience, would you say you have peers who are outside of the city, and do you see them being able to take on different projects and maybe thrive because they don't have to deal with this? Is that something that you're seeing as a person in your space, where it's like, I could do a lot better if I might dare? Or obviously you don't count other people's pockets, but you also, you all in the same space, you in the same game.
Yeah. I'll just make it plain and simple for you. My competitors, none of them are based in the city of Philadelphia. And that should tell you the reason why. Most of them are in like a Conshohocken or a Plymouth.
That's what you're wondering.
Vote for the place with the lowest taxes.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to get destroyed if they don't.
Right.
So to that, but the reason why I asked that is that's literally one of the things our office is, trying to champion is do your business here in Philadelphia, right? If we could get entrepreneurs, if we could get our talent to feel like you could be successful here, then ultimately the city can start to see some of the benefits from some the young businesses that can grow up under the city. But unfortunately, to your point, people often see the taxes that they have to pay on the work that they do, and it enables them to feel as though you can be successful, right? It makes you have this feeling like you can't get over the hump. Yeah. And with that feeling, you want to look at other places. That's why I asked about your industry, right? As a person that worked in tech, 10 years later, I can look and say, yeah, 10 years ago, I thought I had to do that. Right? You see what I'm saying? In my 20s, I thought I had to do that in order to be able to touch that type of, work, in order to be able to connect with those type of brilliant minds in that space. Yeah. If a talented young person was to graduate from Drexel, one of the best software engineers in the world, they would feel like, I can't be one of those best people here, all because a tech company would think I can't be the best tech company here in Philadelphia, right? So to your earlier question, yes, somewhere in like San Francisco, there's a relationship with some of the tech companies and the government to create tax incentives and to create moments where tech companies ultimately give back to that city to maybe, get rid of some of the taxes.
Offset some of the taxes.
Exactly. Offset some of those tax responsibilities. One of the things I can remember off the top of my head, maybe it's not super duper tax related, but it's all related, is in San Francisco, if a company wants to build a new office, one of the things they have to do is they have to allow a commercial business in that building. So if you see a plot of land, you build that building up your own, that's yours. That's TRPE, incorporated, that's y'all building.
Right.
But in order for y'all to business to run out that building, you have to allow a commercial business into your building space. So that's why if you ever been to the Bay Area, a lot of the companies, the Googles, the Twitters, they all have coffee somethings in the lobby. That is part of the tax incentives and the deals that was made for.
You're this mammoth
Yes.
business,
Yep.
and part of your give back
Yep.
and your social responsibility part of your business is you have to allow a business to profit,
A commercial
entity to profit
Yep.
from your traffic
in your space.
workflow in your
Yep.
space.
And that's why kudos also has to give to some of the big businesses that chose to do headquartered here in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Right, a little bit. Like look at Contact.
Yeah.
Right, if it probably anybody else, think probably like I'm going. Right, this is
Well, the South Florida one, right? Texas, or the big one, Mexico.
they choose to stay because it's a conscious decision of how much they love Philly.
Yeah.
Right, and what they want to give back. But at the end of the day, I know every year they're looking at it like,
See how much?
yeah.
I mean, a hot topic in our own city here was our very own sports teams.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that Councilman Thomas was, ultimately saying just to be mindful of is right now is currently, instituted. The Sixers staff is not considered Philadelphia workers.
Right.
They consider Camden.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that, Councilman Thomas was definitely, just pointing out when we think about the Sixers, when they get a new stadium, where the stadium is and everything like that. Let's think about the different ways we can make sure that if we do keep the Sixers, I know all of us want the Sixers to stay here, and whether y'all in South Philly or downtown, we can argue over that. But what we would like to do is figure out a way where the city can start to benefit from some of the tax revenue, and that starts with your everyday employees.
Right.
And
where the HQ is located.
And technically HQ is not in Philadelphia.
But I mean, think about the mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
If you lower some of these taxes and attract more businesses, let's just say my business, right? 100 plus employees. I get them moved to the city. Where are they going to start to spend the salaries that we're giving them? In the city, right back into the city. We're just regurgitating and giving that money back into the institution. It becomes that cycle, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're saying is ultimately we can help get rid of those deficits since COVID by looking at this a different way. Let's attract more businesses here. Let's attract more employees and people who want to work in the city so that more money can flow through the city.
Yeah, I mean, I say it all the time, on this show. Philadelphia has all of the trappings of a great American city.
Mm-hmm.
You got port, you're on 95 corridor, ease of access to the north and to the south. You can get to New York in an hour and a half. You can get to Baltimore in an hour. You can get to DC in 3 hours.
Yep.
You got railway system in the form of Amtrak and Acela. You got an international airline. It's all there, but it's just like there's all of these little idiosyncrasies and these little small, like detail-oriented things that's like, well, why is a company that large in Wilmington versus Philadelphia when majority of the business that they do is in Philadelphia? Why is a company like Power Windows and Siding in Chester as opposed to in Philadelphia, when I would imagine if I looked at their books, 80% of their marketing is being targeted toward Philadelphia?
Well, that's why we are the city, we say it, right? Eds, meds, and beds. That's education, right? The medical space and hospitality. That's the beds, right? So with that being said, you look at those industries and, we all, Philadelphians, we champion blue collar, right?
Yeah.
We champion blue collar. When, on the tax side, that doesn't bode well for entrepreneurials, right? It doesn't bode well if I'm, like I said, if I'm a creator, that's not blue collar, right? That if I'm in the film space, that's not blue collar. So that while there might be blue collar opportunities that are associated with that, we gotta, the taxes is one of the ways we can encourage the film industry, the gaming industry, the tech industry, all to say, you know what, it's talent there in Philadelphia. We got 6 major schools here. We should be able to keep some of the talent, not the talent.
And training them up to go elsewhere and be great and start these companies and become, executives and high power attorneys and all of that. Like, people sitting there literally handpick these schools here, send their kids to go to school here. Villanova, UPenn,
Right.
Drexel,
Temple.
St. Joe's. Like we have some of the most amazing universities, especially when we talk about concentration of them in the country.
Yep.
And we're not keeping probably even half of that talent here, once they matriculate through college.
But it's interesting. We send our kids down to an HBCU like in Atlanta, they don't come back.
Yeah.
There you go, Winston, they don't come back.
That's a great point.
It's different.
Yeah, they go down, they go to Atlanta, they go work for CNN or Turner or whatever. They go to Houston, they go work for Fox. Like, because there's already an ecosystem there to support whatever it is that they want to do, where you step out of college and into the working world.
I mean, we keep a lot of our doctors, I'm sure. We keep our doctors and we produce a lot of teachers, right? I don't know if they lifelong teachers, but we create and produce a lot of people that become teachers. And that's just the nature of, the city being that blue collar. So, to that point, our office is trying to be one of the champions of, the entrepreneurial space, put people in position to feel like, if I start my business here, I'm not going to be paying, 25% out in taxes. Now that hurts me to be able to expand and scale up.
Yeah. You don't ever want someone that, is in any sort of business, maybe whether they're an independent contractor, they are actual entrepreneur with employees or 1099 workers, whatever. You don't want it to feel punitive to operate in whatever home market that they're operating out of, because only 6% of people have been entrepreneurs at any given time. When you look at a snapshot of population for a reason, because it's probably, other than being like a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Is learning and training yourself to be an entrepreneur. So you don't want to add additional stress on already a crazy workload for these people just to, get up and running and, be in a position to operate. I know that a few years ago, we had a big boom with like the film industry. They were filming a lot of movies here. When I worked at Enterprise down in South Philly, we had the Transformers account when they were here filmed, and we've rented a ton of cars. Our revenue was up for, the whole entire summer from like May to October or whatever of that year. We had all of this additional revenue because of these film crews and stuff like that. Law-abiding citizens, same thing. And then now you see that New Jersey saw that as a state and we're like, oh,
They made a tweak.
let's tweak our tax structure and our give back for these film production companies to encourage them to be here. And they went all in on their tourism department and marketing. And now you have films and TV shows, Dope Thief being one of them, that are set in Philly but filmed in New Jersey, because of those small tweaks to the tax system and the tax credit that you're able to get to make them more competitive with California and Georgia, which are the most aggressive, in the country.
So just give me a little plug, because I know you probably about to go there, Preston, but their team is working on the events and stuff that's coming up.
Yes.
And I know he's about to go.
Yeah.
And this is their area where they shine at. Good.
Yeah, one of the things I was just going to specifically say when you talk about the different industries, one of the biggest things and issues with the BERT tax is, or not issues, but the realities is that money doesn't go to anywhere specific.
It's just in a pool.
It's in the general fund. So most taxes go to a general fund. So basically, it's not as if 5 new businesses sprout up, that's, $1 million for the school district. No,
Infrastructure.
that's just a general fund. And now when it comes into the general fund, now that's when, for lack of better terms, it gets, decided on where it goes. To your point, 2026, if I can, kind of lead with that, is going to be a super duper great opportunity for the city of Philadelphia. We're talking, America's birthday. We're talking FIFA tournament. We're talking NCAA March Madness. We're talking PGA, MLB All-Star Game. So like those are just things that's happening on the sports side, not to mention all of the amazing things that we already do here in the city, right? So talking with our folks that do a Dune Day down in South Philly, a Dune Day is going to be celebrating 50 years.
Yeah.
Right? So we looking at all of these different things that's happening in the city. And for us, number one, we want to make the city, from 2026 moving forward, we want basically to be, it wouldn't be like a 10-year feel of great things that come from that work, right? So we want opportunities to be created, through the work that FIFA do, through the vending and through all of those moments, right? There's somebody that's an entrepreneur. There's somebody who, you know, this is year one of their security company. And after 2026, we want them to feel as though they can expand and build their security company. Exactly. They should be able to scale their security up, base their company up based off of the amount of events here and the things that's going on. To me, that's, you know, that's entrepreneurial space, right? That's not the eds, the meds, or the hospitality. You know, it's a private industry. So, you know, we want folks to feel as though that they can be successful here. So one of the things we've been doing across the board is what we call 2026 preparedness. And honestly, you know, the things that we've been doing with the BERT Tax, we've been doing the BERT Tax social media campaign where folks should be able to see that pretty soon, where you look on all of the councilman's socials, where you basically see us shouting out all of the local businesses and entrepreneurs and getting folks to really speak up to how the BERT Tax really affects them as an individual entrepreneur, as an individual business, one brick and mortar. How does the BERT Tax specifically, you know, affect your business, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent? And then that way we can kind of get, you know, the legislators to kind of see that, you know, the BERT Tax that we kind of dealing with right now, I think is at 5.5 or something like that. I can go get the specific numbers, but with that being so high, we need to lower that to like 5.1, right? Just if we can lower that, and while it might not sound like a lot to people, trust me, those.
When you're doing tens of thousands, when that transaction is tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, no, it's a lot of money.
Exactly.
At those margins.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, Councilman Thomas and his whole entire team are doing an incredible job by getting into our communities and saying, hey, this opportunity is coming.
Yeah.
Like, this is your break, right? But at the same time, we want to make sure it really, truly is the opportunity of a lifetime, because it may be once in a lifetime, right? And that's the whole thing what the team's doing, because I've attended some of those events where we're trying to get these small entrepreneur companies to understand, hey, this is the opportunity. But at the other inside of it, we got to help them, right? Yeah, tax perspective. We can't say, hey, this is your opportunity for the next 10 years. And then
you sitting there ready to take all their money with a rake and they scooping all of their money into the general fund.
They can't survive. They can't do anything.
And I think the biggest key for us, and you probably know this, is that you see you giving all of that money away in taxes and you not seeing it benefit things either around your business or in the city where you live, right? Obviously, we would all feel better if it was like, yeah, you know, I paid $1 million, or we seen a company pay $1 million and we seen a school get upgraded like that.
Like everybody could live with that.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, that's not the thing we're seeing, right? Along with another thing we're seeing in the tax space is we're seeing street parking. Street parking will go up $1. And that's not going to nothing. Like that's not going to the general fund. Like street parking will go up $1. Like a whole $1. Like just think about that. That don't sound like a lot, but that's
think about every time you park on the street and then times it by that, and then there's that.
Think about how you pay $1.40 and you're like, dang, that's not too bad. $1.40 for 2 hours. But now that's $2.50.
Yeah.
$2.50 for 2 hours is gonna feel crazy.
Yeah.
And that money's not going nowhere. It's not like that increase is going to now be put in another space. That's not even going to the general fund. Right. That money is just going to be, you know, compiling and adding up.
Is there any part of this conversation where, like, you know, us being a commonwealth and the oldest city in America kind of overly governs a lot of the stuff that we try to do and get done when you do have like a more, you know, progressive or radical, you know, company wants to come in and do this and do that and ask for certain things in exchange for their business. And we just lean on tradition so much that it ends up turning them off. And they say, you know, all right, well, I'm going to just go down the street or go over or headquarter over here or whatever. Like,
I mean, we all are, you know, adults here in Philly. We've been in Philly for a long time. We've seen the things that tried to happen in Philly that didn't happen, whether it be because of the neighborhood, whether it be because of the pushback of the people. That's to your point. Like, that's just the nature of maybe the Philadelphian, right? And, you know, to some degree, you know,
it's fine the way it is.
I've had conversations, right? Like, you know, to go back to the stadium because that's our most recent, you know, city dispute, right? You could be however you feel about, we always want to respect people's neighborhoods and things like that. But look at it from, that was an opportunity to give the city something just new.
Yeah.
Just new. Liven something up. Like, I understand a community being, people feeling like they're being taken out of their community.
Yeah.
And to that's one of the reasons why, you will hope that things that come through that deal would have, basically uplifted that neighborhood to feel as though they could be a champion of this new thing in the city. But we're still going to get a new stadium, right? It's just not going to be in a new location.
Be right on Pattinson. The stadium.
And, I think the idea of the stadium being downtown was an idea of, changing the landscape of the city. And to your point, I think, we are okay with same old, same old.
Yeah, we lean on tradition. I just asked that because we lean on tradition so much at times where it's like, again, it's holding us back from being a great American city. When you look at the NBA, Dave Adelman and Dave Gold from the Sixers, friends of mine, they were on my show. We talked multiple times and we talked through, this issue. And it's a thing where it's like 97% of NBA teams have a downtown arena.
Yep.
So from the NBA standpoint, this is not like rocket science or anything new, whatever like that. It just is what it is. It's just a standard operating practice. And because of that, there's all of this residual business that happens from the trickle down of putting 20,000 people in a downtown arena. They check in hotels, they go to hotel bars, they go to other, bars and lounges, they go to restaurants, they go to street vendors. There's all of this residual business that comes from knowing that 41 nights a year, you're going to have this 15 to 20,000 people letting out this basketball game.
Like, even think about, all of the, how long it took for us to get a casino in city limits, right? Obviously, we can, always split hairs on what business a person or an individual feels is a good business to be anywhere. But just talk about how difficult it was for that to happen. Good, bad, or indifferent. Just speaking to the difficulties of the process of bringing something new here in the city of Philadelphia.
Sorry to cut you off, Will, but a lot of people don't know the original plan for Rivers was like a 4 or 5 level casino. And that neighborhood association fought tooth and nail to get it knocked down. They were trying to get it canceled. And then the compromise was, all right, one flat surface, whatever. We don't want you destroying our skyline was pretty much the argument.
But you can get a hotel.
Yeah, you get a hotel down the street and all of this other stuff. But just don't mess with our skyline. So you get one level for your gamblers and that's it.
I know currently in the Northeast, the folks in the Northeast neighborhoods are fighting against the Amazon. Yep. Well, it's already up there, so they fighting about what, I guess, the aftermath of it and everything like that. So it's just, I understand them, right? I don't want these big trucks coming in and out of my neighborhood all day, like all types of nights. So there's always going to be pushback, but, on the route to our city, trying to be a better city and doing things to keep our talent here, there are some things that, us as Philadelphians going to have to adjust to. And then also we're going to have to fight for it. That's one thing we fighting for with the taxes is if the people, if the business owners can speak out to, how damaging some of these increases can be to their style and quality of life as an entrepreneur in the business and how that could make you want to not be here anymore, then, we would believe that the local government across the board could come together and come up with plans that can ultimately put the city in position to move forward. And like I said, we really want to keep all of these people here. We don't want you to think I got to take my tech talents to the Bay, because, another conversation unrelated to taxes, just the opportunities around funding and things like that. I know on another pod, maybe you could speak to what you had to go through to get funding. But, we could see it visibly, the lack thereof in the city, right? I don't know the Temple donor that's out here looking to make sure a young Temple student's business can thrive. I don't know who it is. Like, I don't know who the Villanova alumni is that has, NIL money to make sure Villanova can be one of the top tier programs in the country as it relates to athletics, right? Because all of those things come from the dollar.
Absolutely.
And if you can't make wealthy Philadelphians, then you can't create people who want to put that wealth back into the city in various ways.
And all money ain't good money, right? For sure. So like, one thing I learned of being an entrepreneur, you're not going to please everybody, right? No. So sometimes you got to steer the course on your beliefs, what you believe in, and what your mission is, right? It's the same thing with taxes, right? You're not going to appease everybody, right? You just talked about the Amazon hub, right? I can't speak to it. I don't live in the Northeast Philadelphia. But when just give you my point of view, I look at it because the person who was building it is an African-American owned construction company, right? So like I'm maybe pushing for it because I'm looking at it from that view, but I don't live there, so I can't speak to that, right? So that's that differences, right? We can always talk about those type of things. But, I think you're not going to appease everybody, but it's what's best for the city.
Exactly.
For the long haul. And that's what everybody needs to get around. And I know you asked me a question earlier, and I don't know if I fully answered it, but when you look at my business colleagues of the large businesses, they're for it. They see it too. Yeah, that this needs to go. Like, this does not make any sense, especially those who are national companies. They're looking at all the other places that they have businesses in, and they're like, why are we paying all this here? Yeah, right. So you got the business community behind it as well, right? Like Preston said, we just need more people to get involved, speak, get testimonies about what they see from their points of view.
Yeah.
Right. And then collectively, when you're talking before the tax reform commission and all those people, they'll start to understand, what everybody's belief is and what their stripes are as well.
Right. Well, what as a follow up to what you just said, what are some of the main challenges you face, being a business owner, with employees, and I know you contract other people for certain jobs and stuff like that, just navigating taxes, tax credit, and any other like associated workforce issues as it relates to like your day-to-day operating in power?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk another time about access to capital, right? Could get an African American man. The quick 1-2 sentence version is I had money when I started my company. I had banks that didn't want to give me money, and I had collateral.
Right. Like, look at this. I have money.
I just want, you can keep all this as collateral. They're like, nah, we don't want to touch it. We're asking, it's crazy. And we could talk about that a whole nother time, but that's what a lot of minority businesses deal with, right? Access to capital. But the other part is employees, right? Retaining talent, like we talked about. Talent is willing to jump and go anywhere because everybody wants that mental well-being. They want that balance of work-life balance. And what we're seeing is that if Philadelphia is not that place that they can have that balance, right? It's not that, hey, when I'm outside of work, I could do this, I could do that. It's safe to go here. It's safe to do this. Oh, it's fun here. If that's not gel, they don't want to be here, right? That's why they're working remote in Arizona.
Yeah,
working remote in Princeton, right?
Mexico City.
It's just that's what I'm dealing with in the industry. A lot of people are doing. Yeah. It's tough because we constantly have to spend money to hire new people and train new people and put money into that. And just as a business that's kind of really starting up and trying to fly, if you starting off, you don't have the money to hire like an Ernst & Young to prepare for all the tax issues. Or get your books right, or get a lawyer to help you navigate all these. You can't afford it.
Right.
You can't afford it. So now you Googling every night, or you ChatGPT.
YouTube University.
Yeah, asking ChatGPT, well, what taxes am I going to deal with, right? It's just not going to work. You about to say something?
No, I was just going to piggyback and say that all of that you're speaking of is all of the money in an entrepreneur would have to put in to feel like you're going to be successful, right? I don't feel like I'm going to be successful if deep down inside I know I had to go to ChatGPT and YouTube for this tax information. I don't feel like I'm going to be successful if I made $400,000 and I got to pay $50,000 to this lawyer, another $50,000 to this preparer, and I'm just throwing out numbers here, but you don't know when you got, not pennies, but you don't know when you fresh in the money-making business, like, is this successful? This feels successful. It's my first time doing it. I'm making a lot of money.
On paper, I feel good about what I did on paper, but the reality is like something totally different.
It's like your check, right? Yeah, you're like, oh man, you calculating your hours when you're on, you see all that tax, and take like, damn.
To you, one of your points about, I think, like I said, Philly, I like to keep it real Philly-centric, right? I think we all grew up on chill, don't pay the bills. Yeah. That's a Philadelphia thing. That's a Philadelphia thing. Only in Philadelphia do we tell each other, yo, you can't have just one job.
Yeah.
You gotta have more than one, because you know Chill don't pay the bills. Chill pays the bills in other places. Let's be clear. Other places, people go to work and go home, and then pays the bills. So I think that's one of the issues that, you know, we're trying to help Philly dispel, if you will, right? We want our individuals to feel as though you can be successful, our talent to feel as though I can get a job here that's going to pay me enough that I can just be myself. I don't want to have to work multiple jobs because now I'm cranky. Now I am a blue collar Philadelphian. Now I don't want my neighborhood to change because no change is going to tell me is going to change my life. Right? Like this change that you're talking about, more traffic just sound like a hassle.
Right.
That don't sound like, you know.
Trying to get my 4 hours of sleep tonight and never
Right.
deal with this on top of everything.
I mean, we've been trying to build a train next to 76 for how many years? A long time.
That park that's getting built right now on 95, my mother told me that plan has been bounced through various iterations of city council since the 90s. This is not a new idea. It's an old idea that now we're finally ready to be like, oh yeah, green spaces reduce crime. Let's put a park on 95.
Yep.
But think about the development we got going on here. You got Mayor Parker with the 30,000 homes, right? That's one thing. But look at Hillcoat, the Bellwether District. Yeah, that's bigger than Center City. Yeah, then you got what they're doing at the Navy Yard. Then you got what they're about to do down at the stadiums, whatever that may look like. They're trying to make that 7 days a week. You look at the opportunity that we have here. We got to fix this now.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they will fail. Yeah, right? They're not going to be what they could be to the city, Philadelphia.
Sure.
Right? If we got to look at how we do this the right way.
Yeah. And both of y'all touched on 2026. You know, with all of these different events and these large scale things that are coming up, you know, I interviewed Matt Cain and Jonathan Todd from Philly Soccer.
The great people, Jonathan. Yeah.
And you know, through that came another opportunity where somebody that's working with FIFA Plus reached out to us to be a part of a documentary. So I can already tell people as a personal testimonial, we're a year out from any of this happening. And there's already this domino effect of happening just from doing a piece of media. So as far as infrastructure and, like you said, security companies, catering companies, all of that, everybody needs to be building up and be prepared for this so that this is kind of like our Philly's audition for the world. Yeah. And if we don't get this right, it might not, you might not get another to make a second impression.
I don't think there's a might. I mean, the reality is there's not going to be another opportunity in our lifetime where we see these amount of things happen in the city, right? Like, just be clear, right? The America's birthday is its own, you know, entity in itself. Never mind the fact that we get in FIFA, MLB All-Star Game, and NCAA and a PGA Tour all in the same year, right? Like, if we'd have just got those things in 1 year, it'd have been like, oh, it's going to be a great year here.
Got one of those things 1 year in a row for 5 years, you would still would have been up.
Or we'd have felt like this is amazing. We'd have been like, the city's about to be rolling for 5 years, right? But no, we got all of this happening in 1 year, so it's like, how do we, this is our, like I said, to continue to champion some of the things we're doing, our 2026 preparedness where we really, really look to, you know, push, you know, I hope I'm okay in saying that Black and brown entrepreneurs, we're trying to do our best to make sure that, you know, the community that looks like us feel as though that we are trying to help them, right? You know, so with that being said, we're coming up with the vendor opportunities, the RFPs. We connected with Jonathan Todd as well. We had him speak on a virtual workshop with over 200 Black and brown entrepreneurs, and speak to them about the opportunities that's on the horizon. And one of those things that we also asking for is those entrepreneurs to be mindful of these BERT taxes. And, you know, when somebody comes and asks you for a testimonial, you know, this is one of the reasons why we want you to speak out to it, because we doing the work to put you in position so that you don't lose the money that you hoping that you can make in the coming years.
Absolutely.
Auditions. That's what we're doing. It's an audition. Eagles trying to think about how to put a dome on there. Why? So we can bring a Super Bowl.
So we can play Super Bowl.
You know, everybody can look at this as a test, right? Is Philly going to do it right?
Yeah.
You know, so that we could do more events there.
And as you know, we've had large, you know, national events before. Matt Cain worked on the papal visit when the folk came, you know, stuff like that. And we knocked that out of the park. Even like the FIFA welcoming committee, as far as like how we did our welcoming. When the international executives came here from FIFA, whatever, putting people on the street in the middle of COVID, and then being able to put 50 people in in an event space, was the sell point for them to be like, oh yeah, Philly is enthusiastic and bought in enough on this thing. And then every subsequent visit that they did in other cities, they mirrored what we did here in Philadelphia.
I mean, we're a proud city, so I think anytime, you put us up for an audition, we're going to show our behind. And, hopefully always in the good ways, right? But we're going to definitely do our best to show up. I deeply believe the city is going to be, standing in full force. As our mayor said, one city. We're going to be, standing together, lifting each other up and, definitely, being proprietors to each other's business. Yeah. Like, that's what's going to matter the most, right? Because in order to be an entrepreneur, you need somebody to want to spend. To one of your points, if the people ain't here when we build all of these nice things, what's it going to matter for?
Yeah. Man, it's a great point. I guess starting to wrap up, I want to ask you, Preston, what are some things that business owners in the area can do to make sure that they're staying up to date with, these various taxes, compliance stuff as it relates to doing business in Philadelphia?
I mean, one of the things, definitely make sure that you are always checking out the councilman's socials. One of the things that we do is, like I said, specifically when it comes to taxes, we're literally doing a social media campaign where you'll see, a bunch of, I don't want to put a number on it because we got so many. We got a lot of, entrepreneurs who are going to be making those testimonials, speaking to how beneficial or unbeneficial the BERT tax might be to, their business. And with that being said, along with that, we're going to keep sending updates. So when folks from our office reach out, please be receptive and reach out to us as well, right? If somebody sees this, if you hear this, please feel free to reach out to Councilman Isaiah Thomas's office, ask us questions, figure out ways to get in the know. We're, a open door office, an open phone office, right? Everybody on our office is looking to, connect with folks. We're looking to figure out how we can service the community.
And then a follow-up, and then I'll story it to both of y'all. Is the BERT tax here to stay, or is it something that we can lobby for or fight to get rid of?
So I was going to kind of save this for my final, and I can always bring it back. I don't mind. But, more specifically, Philadelphia, we need a tax code that attracts, retains, and grows the businesses here in the Philadelphia, but ultimately to make us a self-sustaining city and a global power. So, we must expand the tax base with new businesses and residents who are here to stay. That's ultimately what I've been saying. So with that, lowering the BERT tax from 5.81% to 5.5%. And this is something with a goal of significant reduction over the next 10 years. So this is something that our team and our, policy team is looking at how we can do that. Invest in 2026 programming. As I said, with basically we're trying to leverage it for future tourism efforts. We want to collaborate with the hotel and the restaurant industry to hire Philadelphia artists and creators, basically creating an ecosystem where we, like I just said, we're spending money with each other, right? Our hotel and hospitality folks and our events folks, you hire our local vendors and you hire our local people. Now that Philadelphia dollar goes back in the Philadelphia pocket. What else? We also want to leverage land bank holdings as a competitive equity fund, similar to affordable housing investments, but for business development and growth. Ultimately speaking on how do we, leverage some of this land space and put it back into our businesses to be able to grow. Like I've been speaking of, like you've been speaking of, attract the graduates of Philadelphia universities to work in life sciences and create an investment fund that invests in small businesses and promotes job growth.
Amazing. Will, from your perspective, anything else that we need to, add, to this overall issue, the business landscape, anything that's beneficial that you feel like, we need to let the audience know before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, the BERT tax doesn't have to be here to stay. The more people that get involved, right? We need You know, you just can't have the CEO of this and this person here collectively as a community. That's the beautiful thing about local politics.
Yeah.
It's community based. It's about the city. We need the city to talk about these issues. We need more entrepreneurs to talk about these issues. We need people who are outside the city, who brought their businesses outside the city, to come and talk about, hey, I want to do business in the city. Get involved, speak up. The more people that talk about it is how we can actually start to change things. And the other thing I like to say is, you know, I'm really passionate about how do we keep our kids and students here. You mentioned University of Penn, some of the most top people in the world went to university. Worked.
Yes.
Right? Some of multi-billion-dollar businesses, right? We produce unimaginable people.
Yes.
Right? So how do we start to translate that from our youth in our community, right? How do we start to get into the public school system and get them the things that they need and understand the institutions here? You don't need to go all the way down to Florida or somewhere else to go get a good education. How can we keep you here? Yeah, and then ultimately give you a job here. If we talk about a lot of things that happen in our community, it starts with jobs.
Yes.
Right? You want to talk about why is violence and crime on the street? It's because we need to get them active. We need to give them hope. We need to give them something to push for. So,
And paying them a livable wage.
a livable wage, not, you know, with $6.15 an hour. You know, I remember I was making $2.35 an hour. Okay, right? How can a mom with 7 kids afford that? Right. It just doesn't work. And I grew up in a single parent home. My mother, now very poor.
Yeah.
Right. My mother was a cashier making about $3 an hour, getting paid every 2 weeks, not getting 40 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
Right. That's the reality. Trying to put food on the table for 2 grown boys.
Yeah.
Right. It's just not going to work. So, you know, we need to give our young people opportunity. There's jobs here. Let's give them the opportunity so that we can create this ecosystem that Preston was talking about so that this community can thrive.
Man, amazing conversation, man. Thank y'all both for joining me today. I do want to throw back to y'all, give you know, I guess any last thoughts, and then also how people can contact y'all as far as people really looking for you, Power Church, and they looking for jobs and stuff like that. How they can, you know, reach out to y'all and be able to contact y'all for any, you know, individual or personalized reason.
Well, why don't you start?
Yeah, you can always Google Empower Construction, right? Just Empower Construction. It's www.empowerconstruct.com. Always check us there. If you want to inquire about jobs, we got a whole page there. You can also see the community, things that we're engaged with. Please show up one of our events, show up one of our apprenticeship trainings where we give out that information.
Yeah.
You can always look at me. I'm only on late day. I'm not a big social media guy, so please contact me on LinkedIn. You can find me at William Bowie right on LinkedIn, and please definitely connect.
Awesome. Likewise, you can definitely contact me or anybody down at our office. Councilman Isaiah Thomas, Philadelphia City at large. We cover the entire city. Pretty much you can pull up any city hall number and just call that and say, can you show me the Councilman Thomas's office? Furtherwise, you can definitely find me at my work email. That's preston.tillman, TILGHMAN @phila.gov. So if you need anything, just feel free to reach out to us on the email. And I mean, most importantly for us, as I said, to reiterate some of our points, if I could hit them home again. Philadelphia needs a tax that attracts, retains, and grows businesses here to make it a self-sustaining city. We ultimately want to lower the BERT tax from 5.81 to 5.5 with the goal of significant reduction over the next 10 years. And obviously, Philadelphia, we're going to need your help to do that. As mentioned several times, your testimonies certainly help us. And we want, ultimately on our end, we want to collaborate with, local hotel and restaurant industry to make sure that Philadelphia artists are being hired and the content creators are being hired so we can expand the opportunities for the city. And we want all of our graduates to stay here in Philadelphia and create opportunity. That's the biggest thing for us. And obviously, while we can't overly control it, we definitely want to see the prospering of Black and brown businesses. So we do a lot of things when it comes to Black History Month. We have a Black Business Crawl, as well as things that we're doing as it relates to preparing everybody for 2026. If you got any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to our office, businesses, and residents all alike. If you got any questions about that, and most importantly with the BERT tax, your voice means the most.
Man. Again, thank y'all brothers so much for joining me today. I gotta have you back. We gotta talk about access to capital, business scaling, and all the amazing things you're doing from a social outreach standpoint.
Appreciate it.
But thank y'all so much for the conversation today. William Bowie, Preston Tillman, Chad Fain, Rose Podcast 7. We out of here.